questions. Before we begin, the board likes to take a moment of silence and prayer for those of you that would like to participate. And I'd like to ask Mr. Cummins if he would lead us at that time.
Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all the beautiful things of life that you bless us with. And we ask you to forgive us where we failed you. Lead and guide us today. Help us make good decisions, to be wise and to think clearly and have calm nerves, and just prepare us for what's before us, and just lead and guide us. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Thank you. So I'm Mary Stewart. I'm one of the members of the board. The board is actually made up of 13 members. We have 7 RN members, 4 LPN members. We have 1 physician member and then 1 member who is a consumer representative. So the panels today will be made up of 4 individuals of that board. And 3 of us will serve on the panel and 1 will serve as an alternate, and we'll identify ourselves per case. But at this time, if those who are serving in today's panel will introduce themselves.
Janelle Moody, RN.
Jeremy Cummins, LPN.
No, I was just gonna say I'm an RN. Carly Walker, LPN. Yeah, thank you. And the other thing that I want to mention is that we have today with us the Special Assistant Attorney General, Kristen Love, who will be serving as our hearing officer, and I will turn it over to Kristen Love.
Good morning. I am Kristen Love, and I will serve as the hearing officer for the hearings before the board today. I'll call up the first matter on the docket, case number 2024-1234, involving the licensee with Amy Stewart Maddox, P-324426. Again, I'm Kristen Love, and I will serve as the hearing officer in this matter today. My role during the course of this proceeding will be to rule on objections to questions or evidence raised by the parties, to see to the orderly process of the proceedings, and to ensure that the proceedings are conducted in accordance with the applicable laws and rules. At this time, I ask the members of the hearing panel for this case to state their names for the record.
Janelle Moody, I'll be serving as an alternate.
Jeremy Cummins, LPN.
Mary Stewart, RN.
Carly Walker, LPN.
And will the attorney representing the board state your name for the record?
Brandon Walker.
And is the licensee, Ms. Amy Stewart Maddox, present?
I'm here. Oh. I'm here, yes.
And Ms. Maddox, on the docket you're listed as Stewart.
Yes, I've been married.
So Maddox, all right. So Ms. Maddox, are you represented by an attorney?
No, ma'am.
And you understand you have the right to have an attorney represent you?
Yeah.
You understand you have the right to have witnesses testify on your behalf? And you understand you have the right to have subpoenas issued by this board on your behalf? Understanding all this, you wish to proceed today with your hearing without an attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
Now I want to identify the individuals in attendance that will give testimony. If you're going to testify today, please state your name for the record so the court reporter can read. Ms. Maddox, are you going to testify?
Yes, ma'am.
State your name.
Okay, Amy Maddox.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony about to give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Oh, help me God.
Are there any preliminary matters?
Yes, Your Honor. This day we have B1 through B9. We'd like to admit into evidence, and on behalf of Ms. Maddox, P1 and P2.
Right, Ms. Maddox, do you have any objection to the admission of exhibits B1 through B9 into the record for today's hearing?
I do not.
B1 through B9 are admitted. And Mr. Walker, do you have any objections to P1 through, did you say P3 or P2?
P2.
You have a P3.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, P3.
P3? Okay. So no objection to P1 through P3 being admitted into the record for today's hearing? Mr. Walker?
No, Your Honor, I don't. Sorry.
P1 through P3 are admitted. We'll proceed as follows. We'll have opening statements, hear arguments from each side, allow for questioning, and at the conclusion of the presentation of both arguments, allow for closing statements. Ms. Maddox, I understand this is your petition for restoration.
That's correct.
You can begin now with your opening statement. Mr. Walker may have an opening statement, And then once he concludes, you can begin with your case in support of your.
Um, as far as opening, I don't, I never really, I'm trying to find my words, I'm sorry. I never denied what had happened. I know that I was lost and I went through a very rough time. But when I found myself again, I went through 90-day rehab, 90-day transitional living. I missed the medical field so much. I went and did CNA again, which I love. I have children. I have a family now. I do my meetings. I pass my drug screens. I try to live up to who I feel like I should be today as honorably as I can. I'm not perfect. I still have work to do, but thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker, any opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Ms. Maddox has not practiced as a nurse since 2015. In 2015, she entered into a consent order with the Tennessee Board of Nursing that revoked her privilege to practice in that state. In that order, she admitted to fraudulently or attempting to fraudulently obtain prescriptions for controlled substances by calling in prescriptions using a physician's DEA number without authorization. Subsequently, the Mississippi Board took action on her license based on that action of Tennessee. Today, she's here asking this panel to restore her license to practice. In considering restoring her license to practice, we would ask the panel to consider how long it's been since she practiced nursing, the circumstances that led to her losing her license, her ability to practice nursing safely, her conduct since losing her license, the compliance with all the restoration requirements, and if the public will be protected if her license is restored. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Stewart, Ms. Maddox, sorry. This is your opportunity. Presentation. Mr. Walker may have some questions for you, and then the hearing panel may have some questions for you.
I have in my folder, let me get to the right page. My restoration application. There are letters that's been submitted since being away from nursing. I did miss the field, so I went back and got my CNA. I worked under nurses then who helped kind of keep me fresh as far as my skills and things go. Of course, I didn't practice, but they would let me watch them do their skills and things, and so that was nice to still be around that. They also wrote and I can't find my letters. They wrote in the packet. I think it starts at 3 in the packet. Yeah, that'd be right. That's from friends and also nurses that I worked with. And I feel like the way that I've grown and my growth from learning that's definitely not the way to practice nursing from what I did. Other people have been able to see that, and other people have been able to reach out and speak on my behalf, and that's been very much appreciated. And the drug test, I've taken drug tests since July of 2023 through the board, through the program. I had one out of range value, and I wasn't sure what that meant. I thought I might be dehydrated, but come to find out, drinking energy drinks will put your value out of range when it comes to your BUN and creatinine. So I quit drinking energy drinks because I didn't want to throw any more tests off. And since that happened, all tests were clear negative, thankfully. I am part of a Subutex program. I know that brings a lot of stigma with it, and it's hard to talk about because of the stigma it rises, but it saved my life, not just for me, but for my children. And I'm very grateful for it. So I do participate in that. Honestly, I'm going to wrap that up. I think that's all I've got for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker, any questions for Ms. Maddox?
Yes, Your Honor, just a few, thank you. Ms. Maddox, for the record, will you state your name and your current place of employment for the record?
Amy Maddox, and I'm not employed at the moment.
When was the last time you were employed?
Last year, 2024, with the Meadows of Fulton, Mississippi,
And what were you doing then?
CNA.
You're not working as a CNA anymore?
I'm not.
Why not?
I had to pull my son from daycare and I just need to be with him full time. We were having issues with daycare at the moment.
So it
at that
wasn't,
point.
sorry,
I'm sorry.
it wasn't anything involved with working. It was just personal matters.
Right, personal.
How long did you work as a CNA?
Right at a year, I got, let me see, I'm so bad with dates. I got certified in August of 22, and then I worked through, so bad with dates. I want to say August of 23, so right at a year.
Did you ever have any issues while you're working as a CNA with the Department of Health?
No, sir.
No disciplinary issues?
No, sir.
So before August of 22, what were you doing then?
I worked as a server at a restaurant. I've worked for retail, Ross, just things here or there, never really been able to find my niche.
When were you first licensed as a nurse?
That was back in 2009. I finished LPN school.
And then in 2015 is when the incident in Tennessee happened.
That's correct.
So about worked for 6 years as a nurse. When you were working from 2009 to 2015, what type of facilities were you working at?
I worked geriatrics mainly. And then when I was in Tennessee, I was working at a clinic there, Vanderbilt Clinics. I was afloat. Vanderbilt Clinics, I was afloat.
So you're working at Vanderbilt. How long did you work at Vanderbilt?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm bad with dates. I want to say that was between 9 months to 12 months, so.
Um, so the last time you practiced was in 2015?
That would be correct.
And when did you ever divert any medication?
No, sir, not, what, diverting in the nursing homes, like when you.
Yeah, when you said you were working at geriatrics.
Yes, no, I never,
What caused this? So according to the stipulation of facts that was in the consent order that you signed with Tennessee, it basically said that you were you were calling in prescriptions under a physician's DEA without his authorization. What?
Yes.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just say that happened one time and the second time I got caught, so.
So tell us about the first, what led to that?
I was already in addiction at that point, but I was getting it, met through doctor's offices and I thought that was fine. It obviously was not working. And then, the doctor, she had written me a prescription for stomach. It was really bad stomach pain. I'm sure it's just something I told her to get the prescription. She wrote for 20, and then she was on vacation the next month. It's the doctor I worked with, and I was close with her. So the next month I called in my own refill and they filled it. And I think red flags went off for them. The next month I tried again. I started withdrawing because I ran out of my own medicine and I started panicking. And at that point, I didn't know there were rehabs and stuff. I had no idea that other people went through that. But I tried it again and that's when they caught it and thankfully stopped me.
So the first time she wrote your prescription, the second time you did it, and third time you got caught. Is that
That's
what?
correct.
Okay. When you said you were already in addiction, then when did your addiction start?
It started, I was 23 years old and I lost my son. He died and I had to deliver him without him being alive. So, they gave me pain medicine for that and it just escalated. I thought pain medicine was the new antidepressant. I really thought I was onto something. And then, I found a doctor who would keep writing it. So
What year was that, would you say?
I was 23 years old. That was in 2010.
So at that point, you were 5 years into your addiction. Is that what you're saying?
Back and forth. I wasn't like as deep in, like when I lost my license, I went head first, but I was playing around pretty dangerously at that point.
Can you elaborate on that? What do you mean playing around?
Like getting prescriptions, thinking I was doing it the legal route, so I was in the clear. I was taking them as prescribed, but I was still, my body couldn't go without it. And instead of stopping it, instead of realizing there was a problem, I just kept doing what I was doing. I thought I could manage life like that.
What all were you taking?
Just hydrocodone.
Would you say that was your drug of choice?
Yes, it was accessible. It was easily accessible. So yes,
That was about, you said 2010.
that's right.
Did you take anything before you had your incident with your son? Were you taking anything? You have any drinking problems, taking any illegal substances, anything like that? No issues?
I'd never dabbled in it or anything.
So what would you say is, do you have a date of sobriety?
I do. December 13th, 2021. I'm working on 4 years this year.
So do you have a sponsor now? How long have you had a sponsor?
She's been my sponsor for a little over 2 years,
How often do you talk to her?
every day, every single day.
Are you doing AA meetings as well? I mean, obviously you turn some in, but
I am, yes, sir.
3 days, 3 times a week.
I do. I try to stay on top of that. I do them with my sponsor, so, but I think I'm gonna try to start doing online. That seems like a better schedule.
For your AA meetings.
Yes, yes.
What's what's your support system like? Can you tell us about that?
I can. I've very supportive family. My dad, stepmom, they're both RNs. They've supported me even through the worst, darkest days. My mother, she's an RN. She took my daughter when I went and got help. I was able to do like 120, like 90 days, so 180 days total of rehab. And she kept my daughter for me then. My husband, he's been a rock for me. My sponsor, everybody in the meetings. I have a good community, a really good community.
What type of, you mentioned rehab. How many times have you been into rehab?
I went twice to Life Core in Tupelo and then, oh, I'm sorry. I went twice to Life Core in Tupelo and then I went one time to Recovery House in Columbus, Mississippi.
And how long were you in those?
The Life Core programs were only 30 days and I just didn't feel like that was sufficient for what I needed. So the Recovery House was the 90-day in program and then the 90-day transitional housing for women,
When was the last time you were in one, in rehab?
2021.
Is that when it's the December? Is that-
That's right. Yes.
You said, and I'm not trying to make you repeat or kick a beat a dead horse here, but you said earlier that when 2015, when you got caught, that's when you really nosedived. Can you elaborate on that? What happened?
I started doctor shopping, like really intense. I would go into ERs and try to say that something was wrong so I could get something through an IV. And I think when they had gave me Dilaudid, and that scared me so bad to think that people get that on the streets and use that. It was terrifying to me. And that's when I realized I was at my bottom. Like I couldn't keep going like that.
And then when was the first time you went to rehab?
Oh, I couldn't tell you the year. Maybe 29, probably 2018 would be right. And then I followed up the next year in 2019. And those were the 30-day programs.
And then in 2021 was
That was the long, yes.
so what were you using up until that point, or did you stop any at that point?
No, I was using up until that
Okay.
point. I was getting, if I couldn't get a prescription, I would go and get gas station medication.
So what happened? And you don't have to get in anything that you don't want to divulge, but what changed in December of 2021 from these to make, did you have a life change? What changed? when you
Yes.
got sober?
I was about to lose my daughter. I was about to lose full custody of my daughter, and I wasn't. I just, I didn't deserve that life. She doesn't deserve that kind of life. My parents raised me better than that, and they'll tell they told me that, and I knew that. I think what really changed was I started seeing motivational videos on Facebook, and I was like, I got to snap out of this.
Did, during that time, did your family know about what was going on, or did your support system that you have now, would you say that was different back then?
It was harder. They wanted me to get help, but up until that point, I was refusing help. I was refusing to admit that I even had an issue. Um, yeah, it was a strained relationship.
Let's see. Looks like, I think in your packet and what you sent in the documents, that you had some substance abuse treatment in 2022 too, or maybe that's the 2021, it probably ran in 2022.
It did.
And you had have you ever had an assessment done for substance abuse? Or evaluation?
I'm sure. I don't know where along the way, but I'm sure I have.
You wouldn't know what the diagnosis is even now.
Well, I had PTSD, if the mental diagnosis, and then bipolar, type 2.
So you've had a psychological one done?
Yes.
So
I'm not sure what, I don't know the difference. Okay.
I'm not asking you to testify, but what I'm getting at is, would you be, if the board decided to give your license back, would that be something you would be open to having done, as a substance abuse evaluation and a psychological evaluation maybe?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you take anything? I mean, we have your PNP, but what are you taking for your mental health issues that you just mentioned?
I take Prestige daily and Abilify. Those are once a day.
And on your PNP, I think it's on 25 and 26. Looks like I'm going to murder these names, so I apologize, but buprenorphine and Suboxone, since you've been taking those since, it looks like 2022. Do you have any plans for that, or have you discussed coming off of it or titrating down? Are there what's your plan going forward? Do you know?
Right now I feel so stable and good about it. My husband and I have discussed coming off of it, though. I feel like I would be, I'm pregnant right now. I'm 25 weeks, so I'm definitely going to see it through the pregnancy and make sure the baby's healthy and everything before I try anything new. But yeah, we've discussed it. That's not going to be a long-term fix.
Do you have a primary care provider that you see that is what you work with on that?
I do, Dr. Dukewood.
So are you also seeing a counselor or anybody?
I do, yes.
How often do you see them?
I see her once a month. Yes,
And you plan on continuing to do that?
definitely.
So what's your action? Have you done anything with the action in Tennessee yet?
When I signed that, I wasn't really understanding what that was. So what you just kind of told me, I didn't realize I had signed away. I'm still not really sure what I signed in Tennessee.
Yeah, so, well, the only reason I'm bringing that up, other than, yeah, it is relevant, but, because they issued you a cease and desist and essentially revoked. If you look on page 14, you can see it.
Okay.
Under stipulated disposition. You see that?
Yes.
So did you know that if the board does grant your license back, you'll only have a single state license
Okay.
because of the compact? Did you know that?
I didn't. I mean, it doesn't surprise me because
But
I actually didn't plan on going back to Tennessee.
but so you haven't done anything with this horse?
Mm-mm,
Okay.
mm-mm.
So it's been a lot of time, and I know you've testified today that you've been, while you're working as a CNA, that you've been working under nurses. But it's been a long time, right? Like, it's been since 2015, correct? Since you practiced. So why would you think that you'd be safe to practice now? Because you've only practiced for about 6 years total, correct?
Mhm.
So what, because you had, today it's your period, you have the burden to prove why you safe to practice and why you should have your license back. So my question really is, after all this blabber, is what makes you safe to practice?
Well, I still went through, this accredited college for my nursing license. I was able to pass everything. I do everything that they required, pass the NCLEX. I've done some classes between then and now that have refreshed my education. Staying in the nursing home and around geriatrics has kept my skills right on the tip. Like instead of forgetting it and pushing it back where I can't see them, I've been able to recall things. I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm sorry.
Uh, it's just whatever your take is. There's not a right or wrong answer. My other question is, I guess, let me ask more pointed, because maybe that's not a fair question. Do you feel like you could, based on your history, could you be around controlled substances without being tempted, or is that gonna be an issue?
No, I absolutely can. I had a baby in 2023. He's 2 years old now. I had to do medicine then. We had an emergency C-section, almost lost him. And they put me on pain medication then, and it wasn't an issue, I know. And then my husband and my kids, they have to have it for their needs, so I can be around it. I don't have any, and it may be the Suboxone even, I don't know, but I don't have any cravings.
So do you think, because things happen and obviously, that's what started all this. Do you think if something else happens and heaven forbid, you have to have another medical procedure, is that a concern for you?
It's always gonna be a concern. It will. I'll always be extra careful. All my doctors will always know about it and they'll be extra careful. But I lost everything to addiction. I almost lost my baby, my little girl. And I'm not willing to lose everything. I'm not.
And so like, kind of going back to what I asked you a minute ago, a lot's happened since you last practiced. I mean, COVID happened. Do you think you can adjust to the changes that may be in nursing now?
I feel like I can. I do want to do some courses and things that I need to do to refresh and whatever's needed. But yeah, I believe that I could step back into it.
I just got two more. One last question, one of the last questions. Why, so you lost it in 2015. Why did you, and I know you, based off what you said today, you went into a bad place. Why did you wait so long to petition to get your license back?
I was very immature. When I didn't show up for my board meeting before, I just kind of dismissed it and didn't just thought, oh, well, then I have a family and working as a CNA, my daughter wanted to tell everybody that her mommy was a nurse and, and that's beautiful. I want my daughter to be proud of me. And I just thought, I can offer them a better life. I can offer myself a better life. And so I came back to where I guess home, so just what I feel like the nursing field is.
So the last question I have is what can you offer the panel to why should they restore your license? What reason can you offer them to restore your license?
I know that I grew up with nurses. My whole life has been filled with the medical field. I was a CNA as soon as I graduated high school in 2005, and then went into phlebotomy and then went into LPN. And being away from nursing, I tried different things. Nothing ever really worked out. Um, Not that I didn't like it. I enjoy serving the public, but nursing is where my heart is. And then went back into CNA and I thought I can come back into nursing. I think I can do this. Just feel like that's where my heart is. It's where my life has been. And hopefully that's where my future can be.
I have no further questions.
Any questions from the hearing panel for Ms. Maddox?
What do you consider your sobriety date?
December 13th, 2021.
That was your last rehab.
Yes, sir.
Is there a certain area of nursing you plan to work in if you get your license restored?
I would, and I don't know if it's possible to go further education, but I would like to step back into geriatrics. always been where I've been, and then maybe further education down the road if that's possible.
So Ms. Maddox, we really appreciate you coming and sharing your story and, answering the questions and being open with this. I think all of us would say, we can't imagine anything worse than losing a child. So, I'm sorry that you experienced that.
Thank you.
You have two children now, is that correct? How old is your daughter?
She's 6 years old. My son is 2 years old, and I'm 25 weeks pregnant.
And you're, I'm trying to establish your support network. So your husband, is he the parent, parent of these children?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Does your husband have any history with alcohol or drug use?
He suffered, I'm not exactly clear on his, he was sober before me. We met in the groups, in the meetings. So I think what he went through would be his to share, but yes, he's had a background. But he's been sober longer than I have.
Okay. So longer than 2021.
Yes, ma'am.
So let me ask you this, and this is just completely my ignorance, so just forgive me. On your PMP, and I know that you said that you were in the Subutex program.
Yes, ma'am.
Right, okay. So is the prescriptions for hydrocodone and oxycodone part of that?
No, that's when I had my son.
Okay, so did you use, you said that your drug of choice was hydrocodone. And so on April 14th, you got 20, well, April 8th, you got 20 oxycodone, and then on the 14th of that same month, you got 20.
Mhm.
So did you take all of those?
I don't know. My husband was in charge of that. So if I had any left over there, they were flushed or whatever you have to do to get rid of those now. I think they come in packets and you have to dissolve them. But I took them. I did take them for pain. I was in a lot of pain.
Okay. So was there something, help me understand how that was the drugs that you took instead of something else for pain, since that was a drug of choice?
That's a good question. My doctor who does the Subutex said that I could have just stayed on that and then taken more. I was afraid of running out of that and then not having it. My OBGYN told me he prescribed the hydrocodone and oxycodone. Hold on, I think so. I had to go to the ER too because I had an infection set up. And they tried to stay together and talk it through. We didn't have a pain management plan like my doctor and I do now. So that got really confusing and really chaotic at that point. But I was able to get back into or not get back into it. I never got out of the Subutex program. I just took that and then picked back up and went back to normal.
Okay, so you have a plan now,
Yes, ma'am.
Because best case scenario, I mean, people don't always pay attention to what is reported in the chart. Like if you say you have substance use disorder, that may get missed.
Right.
So I'm trying to understand what your plan, how this plan would be better compared to what happened just 2 years ago.
Excuse me. I think it's better because I just take, Subutex is used for addiction, but it can also be used for long-term pain management. And that's what we're going to stick with through the pain, through recovering from a C-section, because I'll have to have another C-section. So instead of doing anything extra, or trying to throw in anything to, that would get me off balance with my own body, we're going to, have to do extra where I need it and then go back to my regular dosing.
okay, you're testifying that you're not going to, your intention is not to use hydrocodone or oxycodone with this next delivery.
That's correct. That is my intention. And I hope that works out.
Great. And you do have a lot of references. They're, all from professionals, RNs, LPN, social worker, and three of your parents are RNs and spoke to that. So, and that's encouraging. At the same time, as Mr. Walker has said,
We really have to, for as much as we care about you, we have to make sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of protecting the public. And so one of the things that we understand from research is that it takes about 5 years, 60 months to demonstrate physiologically that someone has kind of turned the corner physiologically. Now, I'm not familiar with when you're on the Subutex program, how that works, but typically it's about 60 months. And so, would you be willing, and I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear you say it. Would you be willing to, is there anything that you would not be willing to do if the board were to say this is part of what your requirements are?
so courses, continued meetings, therapy,
Yes,
monitored practice or supervised practice. I think even a delay, a little bit of a delay.
I just feel like I'm at your mercy. If you ask me to do something, I'm willing to do it.
I think that will. Thank you.
I have one more question for you.
Yes, sir.
Are you currently attending AA and NA meetings?
I am. Yes, sir.
Because the records that we have showed that your last meeting was September the 17th of 24. Is that incorrect?
I put in a new exhibit today. I don't know if you've gotten it or not. They're updated meeting sheets. No, it's okay.
So you're attending 3 a week.
I'm trying to, and I have been. Yes, it's been working out well. I do my sponsor twice a week, and then my husband and I go every Saturday night to a speaker meeting in Columbus.
Your husband attends the meetings as well.
Yes.
Any additional questions from the hearing panel for Mrs. Maddox? Ms. Maddox, is there anything you want to address based on that line of questioning you received from the board council and from the board?
I don't think so. I really feel like the question, I feel good about it. Thank you.
Right, anything else you want to present in support of your petition?
No, ma'am.
All right, we'll conclude the hearing here now and begin with closing statements. Starting with you and then with Mr. Walker.
Okay, I feel like I've run out of things to say. I appreciate y'all today. Definitely listening to me. I get long-winded, but I feel like this has been a big journey in my life, finding myself, finding where I belong. I'm hoping to continue with nursing. That's the only thing that ever really felt solid in my life was nursing until later on I had my family and everything felt like it came together. So, I think continuing education programs are, well, it's something that I've tried to do and I have done a few classes. But I think that's a good place to start. I don't know how to close this. I'm sorry. Thank y'all.
Mr. Walker?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I just want to remind the panel that Ms. Maddox is here asking for her license to be restored, and that's her burden. I just closed with the factors I mentioned earlier. Just when in your decision, please consider how long it's been since you practiced nursing. The circumstances that led to her losing her license, if she can practice safely, her conduct since she's lost her license, and lastly, if the public will be protected, if she gets her license back. Thank you.
This concludes the hearing in case number 2024-1234 involving the licensee, Mrs. Amy Mannix, license number P-324426. At this time, I entertain a motion from the board to go into closed session to determine whether grounds exist to go into executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, at this time, I entertain a motion from the board to actually go into executive session to deliberate on this case.
Make that motion.
And a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, the board is now in executive session. Will deliberate and return with its decision.
looks like the last one we show a record for is, it's built in July of 2023.
Mhm.
Does that sound correct?
Right. And I didn't take them every day when I got them filled.
But you were getting them at least every month, is that right?
Right. Hmm.
I mean, do you think that had anything to do with your sleeping problems?
Could have. I don't think so. I don't think that had anything to do with my sleep apnea. My sleep apnea was because of the way my palate is formed. Oh,
Um, do you see anybody for your sleep issues?
I do.
Who are you seeing?
Um, I don't even remember his name. It's through the sleep clinic at St. Dominic's.
How long have you been, how long have you been seeing somebody for that?
Since they put me on the CPAP. A year maybe, year and a half, 2 years. I don't remember.
You would say
A
approximately
year and a half.
year and a half?
Mhm.
Are you taking anything or what are they doing for that? I heard you say a CPAP. So is there anything other than that? Just a CPAP?
Mhm.
So you admitted you took one of your husband's, cannabis chocolates, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, do you think that was a good idea,
No,
ma'am?
no,
Were you aware that it is a violation of the Nurse Practice Act if you take something that's not prescribed to you?
Yeah.
Um,
it was a stupid decision. It was a stupid choice that I made.
so are you familiar with, Part 2830, the admin code that specifically deals with, the practice of nursing? Are you familiar with those rules at all?
Mhm.
So one of them, and I'm not gonna read them or bore everybody with them. But one of them is, it says that the RN is responsible and accountable for making decisions that are based upon knowledge, competency, experience, and the use of the nursing process. In your opinion, would you say that was a competent decision?
No, I would say that was a mistake.
Um, so you do agree that you did violate the rules, correct?
Correct.
Would you agree that it probably had some effect on you the next day?
I didn't feel that it did, but I didn't.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
I didn't.
You didn't feel like it did?
No.
Well, I mean, there were several documented reports of your appearance and behavior. Would you agree with that? And the drugs, I'm sorry, the drug screen checklist, not the drug screen. Would you agree that they did observe you as being somewhat impaired?
That's the first time I've seen that, but I would agree that they have circled many things that would. That they. that they viewed.
So obviously that we have a statement from that Miss Causey looked at the report, and then we also have this checklist that was filled out when you drug tested, that you agree it does look that somebody observed you impaired that day, correct?
Correct.
And we looked at your PMP, and I know Miss Causey testified that you now had a certification for cannabis, correct?
Correct.
How long have you had that?
It's July, maybe June or July of last year.
Okay. And how often, can you tell us how often you take it?
Rarely.
I'm sorry.
Rarely.
Can you,
I haven't taken anything in the past 6-8 weeks. And then rarely before then.
can you kind of, and I'm not trying to hold you to it, but can you kind of give, in your idea, what is rarely? Can you kind of give us how often would you say you take it?
Once or twice a week if I was having trouble sleeping.
And what would you say? You said the last time you took it was when?
may have been living longer than 2 months, 3 months.
Have you ever taken it or do you take it before you go to work?
No,
Um,
I also haven't worked in the past year.
you have not worked in the past year. Should have asked. So you're not employed?
No.
And you haven't, when was the last time you were employed?
When I was terminated from there.
So you're not currently working? You have any plans of working as a nurse
I would like to.
at nursing or nurse education?
Just the nursing field.
The last thing I had, would you agree that you also had a positive drug screen for something that you don't have a prescription for?
I would agree.
So you're not really disputing that you were not guilty against the charges that were presented?
No, I'm not.
You agree that you were?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any questions from the hearing panel for Ms. Babbitt?
I just have one question for you. Prior to that incident at St. Catherine's, had you ever taken, one of the cannabis infused chocolates before to know how you might react to it?
No.
That was your first time taking
Mhm.
it? Okay. And then also, how long have you been seeing the provider for your sleep apnea?
I think about a year and a half. I can't remember exactly when I first went.
Question?
Okay, so just a few clarification points, please. So why have you not taken any of the cannabis in the last 2 to 3 months?
Because I would like to go back to work. And just wasn't worth me taking that for what I'm going through now with this.
Okay, help me understand that, just
Okay.
If you now have the card,
I think mostly because I still felt guilty because of this, like it's still something wrong I shouldn't be doing.
so weren't, you had sleeping problems before. Just tell me if I've got this wrong. Okay. You had sleeping problems. You took one of your husband's gummies, chocolates, whatever, to help yourself sleep. You chose to go to work the next day after you had done that. And we've talked about that assessment and so forth. And then you were terminated, and then you got a card for yourself, and you said you began taking it for sleep. So, is that correct?
That's correct.
So, if you go back to work, how are you gonna manage the problem that started this, according to your testimony? The
I'm just not-
problem with
I'm-
sleeping.
I've already been back to my primary care physician, and they have put me on a sleep medication.
what sleep medication?
Buspar to help me to sleep at night.
You still take Clonidine?
No,
Klonopin?
Klonopin.
And when was the last time that you took Adderall?
Oh, I think it was back in June, no. May, maybe.
May of 24.
Do you believe that do you believe that patient education is part of nursing care?
Yes,
And so in your role as a nurse educator, if you're not available to do that because you're so sleepy, you don't wake up from your
Cell phone alarm, I think that's what you said. How would you describe that to someone else in terms of your responsibilities to patients? You were talking to someone else who had fallen asleep and slept so soundly that they were unable to wake up.
That they should have notified me, it said that they could have gone home. Because
Why would we send them home?
because the one, agreeing with her was not professional. And two, because it did interfere with my responsibilities.
To the patients.
Right.
So, and then just to clarify, there are 2 or 3 things and I think we're getting an inconsistent story about. I'm trying to get clarification on the story about the sleeping.
Mhm.
So,
I don't think we've discussed this, but on page 46, there's an email from Elisa Wilburn. Who is that?
She's the executive director
and,
of St. Catherine.
okay, how long have you worked with her?
I had worked with her since I'd started there.
Would you say that she's a credible
Nurse in the time that you've worked with her? She's been truthful.
Yes.
So in her email, she said that she called your name and you woke up and began to get up.
No, I was already, because I had finally heard my alarm and I was waking up as they were coming in. So I was getting my stuff and putting it back up. Now, I mean, it was right before they came in. So yes, I was asleep.
Okay. It said that your head was face first under the desk with your feet sticking out and you had a residence blanket on top of you. That's what her email says. She was using a resident blanket donated by volunteers as a top cover.
Right. Now that part is true. That's what I was folding up and putting away.
Okay, that's inconsistent with what is reported here. She says,
I haven't seen
saw her
this
on the
email.
floor." I'm sorry.
I haven't seen this email. So
Okay, I'll read this. I saw her on the floor, lying face down, head farthest under desk and feet pointing away from desk. I could see that Leslie was there under a cover with her head exposed and sleeping. I called her name and she woke and began to get up.
that's not how I recall it.
Okay, that's how you would call it. Okay, that's fair.
And so I guess the last question I have is, why did you go to work day after you'd taken something that you testify you've never taken before?
Because I didn't feel like it had affected me. I mean, I didn't feel any different when I woke up the next morning.
But would you be able to tell the difference if you were taking something you've never taken before that you felt different?
If I'd never taken it before, I would think I would.
Well, okay.
I mean, I understand what you're asking.
Okay, my question is, how would you assess yourself that that you feel differently if you're taking a drug that you've never taken before? I mean, perhaps often drugs change the way we perceive things or change the way we feel about things. So my question to you is, if you had taken a prescription,
Mhm.
why would you think it was okay to go to work? You're just basing it on your feelings after you've taken THC.
The night before. Yeah,
But you've also testified that you haven't taken THC in months and you wouldn't do it now because you think it's too risky.
Mhm.
So my question is, why did you think it was okay then?
I didn't think it through.
All right. Thank you.
Additional questions from the hearing panel? All right, Ms. Babbitt, anything you want to address based off that line of questioning? Anything you want to address before you move forward with your defense?
Just that I do admit I was in the wrong. It was unprofessional. Something I'm very embarrassed and have been humbled and from. And I do want to work again. I've enjoyed a 28 going on 29-year career without any problems before. And so I just ask that, I guess that y'all heard my version with theirs.
Thank you. Do you have anything else you want to add before you conclude?
No, thank you.
So this concludes the presentation of the evidence in case number 2024-0627. At this time, we'll begin with closing statements, starting with Mr. Walker.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Babbitt was charged with 3 charges. One was that she had a positive drug screen. She clearly has a positive drug screen. She admitted she did. The other charge was that she administered, possessed, and obtained something, a drug that she didn't have a prescription for, which is also a violation. She admitted she did that. She admitted she took her husband's cannabis. And then lastly, she was charged with being impaired on duty. There are several statements in there and even a drug checklist that shows that she was showing signs of impairment on duty. She's admitted and she didn't deny any of it today. So you have a clear violation and admission of guilt on that charge as well. And by the evidence presented and by her own admission, she's guilty of the charges against her, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any closing statement from you, Ms. Babbitt?
I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Close the hearing in case number 2024-0627, involving the license fee